Oh, what's up,
What's
dude?
up?
I like the look.
I like the shirtless zipper look.
And
It's one of your best.
when it feels like one of the things about living down here is like if we lose any humidity at all, or there is at least a slight cooling, I feel like winter's here and I hate that. And then because I hate winter, I have to wear winter clothes, and this is about as winter clothes as I get as a hoodie.
What before I touch on that, I thought that was a slot machine behind you. I'm like, dude, the Bass family for the Kelly Bass birthday party today must be
Yeah.
off the chain.
Oh, dude. I yeah, no, this is kind of work mode. This is mixing records and recording records. I kind of uh this is the behind me view when I'm doing that, and when I'm recording, all of this kind of goes off to the side and the room's open and we can record, but like mixing, it's nice to have all the stuff I need to get to right behind me. And so this is kind of the room's in disarray right now. So
It's uh it's Kelly's birthday today, correct?
it is.
So does it get harder doing birthdays as long you guys are together? Like, is there ever like do you ever have like this feeling where it's like, fuck, I can't beat what I did last year? Like, how do you kind of maintain the level of love slash surprise slash eat this cake and shut up?
I'm wondering if I should be honest right now. Um, I'll be honest because by the time she sees this, I would have been honest with her. John, I woke up this morning and had no idea it was my wife's birthday. I've had a lot of shit. I just had a lot of shit going on, like
Yeah, of
personal
course.
stuff and like headspace stuff, and I've been in my own sphere. It was actually a really good wake up call for me because I was like, holy shit, man! Like you totally blanked on the fact that it's your wife's birthday. Like this is, I think this is the first time I've ever done that.
Yeah.
I've always like prepared weeks out, and like I kind of know what's coming. And again, you talk about the love and everything. It's like that's not it at all. Like there is no complacency in our relationship in that way. Like um there, of course, there's going to be some complacency with certain things. That's just comes with the territory of being in a relationship that long. But I literally I'll tell you what happened. I woke up this morning and I had a text message from Ben Bruce, and it was, "Hey mate, just checking in on you guys. Please tell Kelly we hope she has a happy birthday today." And I was like, "Fuck." And I'm gonna
Six
have to
hours
tell her
ahead of
this.
the future.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to tell her this now. But what I did, okay, so to that point, I don't remember what I did last year for Kelly's birthday. Like it doesn't, I'm not trying to ever outdo one year to the next. And obviously this year you know,
Yeah, you guys went to dinner because we were on tour. Because
that's
I
right.
remember it was
Yep.
the day after. Yeah, because she had come
See,
out the day before.
and now
Yeah.
you're getting me in double trouble because like you remember that and I don't. I shit. I'm in so much trouble now. Uh but what I did was I was like, okay, what can we do? Like, and I was like, you know what? She's been mentioning all these things that she wants to do, and we never do them because honestly, maybe because I'm always busy. Like, it
Of
comes
course.
down to that. It's not lack of wanting to do. It's just, and the thing is in our relationship, something that has been omnipresent from from our the inception of us dating is I've got this dream, I've got this thing I'm trying to do, and she has been along for the ride and has never asked me to not do it, and has always been into whatever's going on, and she takes every single bit of it in stride, the low points, the high points, everything. There's never any like uh you know uh like when I'm bummed out, man, she's there to support me and to help me through, which is kind of where I've been lately. um and then when we have our high points, she's just the same even keel, like, hey, I'm super happy for you, but it's not like this gushing thing, it's like this, like she's a rock, man. I often say that she is the pole and I'm the tetherball, it's like she's like this rock in our relationship that like is constant, and I'm just all over the fucking place, man. And that can
Right.
mean anything. Um, so what I've decided to do, I was like this morning, I was like, okay, dude, what are you gonna do? Like this is super important. This isn't like, oh, it's just, I don't throw it off like it's like, oh, well, I forgot. Ha ha ha. It's like, it's not funny. Like, it's not funny that I forgot. It's actually really shitty that I forgot. And by the way, it's not that I forgot when her birthday was. It was like I didn't know what date it was. Like
Correct.
that's what happened. It's not like I didn't think about it being her birthday. It's like I didn't honestly like I didn't know we were in September.
Doesn't feel
So,
like it.
but that's because I've just been so in what's going on in here and some other things, stuff going on with my record. Trying to put that out, and it's just been super busy. So, anyway, so I've planned the week out. Like I was taking this week to do, I'm doing some Shinedown mixes, but also I was going to work on my record and get stuff, working on
Yeah.
various things with that. Uh, and I can still do that. Uh, Meaning like Brent and I aren't going to be working on anything this week. So that was already there. And I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to plan something every day for us to do. And it's something that she has mentioned that she wants to do, that she likes doing, you know? And so, uh, that's what I've planned out. And I woke up this morning, I went, because I woke up at like 5, and she usually gets up around 8:30, 8 o'clock, something like that when the dogs get up. So I walked back in before we started filming this and was like, she got out of bed and I was like, happy birthday, like, and now, of course, like I said, I'm gonna have to let her know, but it's like, I feel that I really do. Like, I feel so awful because she never forgets anything like that. It's always like, she's so thoughtful and I'm just a dumb Neanderthal, who can't remember anything. That's how I feel about it.
Like, do you think like
But
birthdays are overrated in that sense? Like, I get like the 18,
dude,
21, 20, 30, 40,
I don't
50.
worry about them anymore. Like
Yeah,
I don't really worry about it at all. Like I don't honestly, man, like what makes me feel good on my birthday is just being around the people I love. That's what makes me feel good. And whether it's you guys on tour or it's my wife or it's a combination of both of those things or my family here,
yeah,
you know, like that it's like Thanksgiving, it's like that's what makes me feel good. I don't want any gifts. I don't need anything. I don't like just be with me for this, like that's what I think about with my birthday. But I don't think about I'm really trying to throw off thinking about age because it like for all intents and purposes, I actually feel good. Like I've got this injury that I'm dealing with and of course I've got, a circus in my brain all the time. But like physically, like I don't yeah, I mean I can tell where I've lost steps and things are a little more difficult here or there. I've got aches and pains, but like I don't feel how I thought 50 was supposed to feel when I was a kid, you know?
right.
When I was a kid, like 50 was old, man. Like you were done. Like just pack it in, life's over. with. And I think it was kind of like that. Have you done the thing where you look at pictures of people like at certain ages back in the 80s and stuff and looking at
Oh,
that same age now?
oh.
It's quite unreal, man. It's pretty shocking.
I wonder, do you think if you put like our great grandfather, so I'm picturing a picture of him now that's actually one of these rooms on the wall where he looked, I don't like do you if they had the knowledge and of understanding of like health and like maybe fitness, but like the education behind nutrition and stuff and like how smoking actually isn't good for you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How would they, if you took that picture with the knowledge they had back then, now, like how would you think? Like I don't know, were they happier back then? Are we happier now? Like, it's just it's. I think it's easier to look at that stuff and kind of be like, oh, imagine if they realized the food pyramid actually was bullshit back then
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So it's just like I don't know. Like I don't know. I think they were happy. I mean, you hear stories, or at least I did
Well,
with
well,
the.
well, they would have to be. I mean, like, I don't think that it was, I think sometimes well, I don't think sometimes. I think look, I'll say this. We live in the most interesting time in human history right now.
Oh,
And we've mentioned this before, where it's like human existence stayed exactly the same way until about 150, 120 years ago, and things started to evolve. And now it's unrecognizable. And it's all happened in a blink of an eye and a blip. And the way we think about it sometimes is like, oh, they must have been miserable without air conditioning, and they must have been miserable without technology, and they must have been miserable without having to ride a horse and buggy everywhere, and they didn't know any different. They were probably really fucking happy.
right,
Most people were probably, and not that it was an easy existence, but they didn't know anything different. It fast forward 150 years from now, hopefully we make it through, and we haven't destroyed each other, and maybe the world isn't a global totalitarian regime. If that's not the case, we'll probably look back, or our future people on Earth will look back at us now and be like, man, they were slumming it with computers and you know and iPads and tablets and like the internet, and X and Instagram. Like, you know, did they not, do you think, like, so what you said about the food pyramid is bullshit. They might be like, did they not understand that Instagram was like poison and, you
Right.
know, like,
The devil.
yeah, but I mean, I think it's just sort of, human existence is human existence, and to use the Joe Rogan thing, and tying this in, he says the worst thing that ever happened to you is the worst thing that ever happened to you. Your life is just what it is. Like, it doesn't have to be the worst thing. The best thing that ever happened to you is the best thing that ever happened to you. So, John Guarnieri 150 years ago would be having great things and bad things happening to him too,
Right.
and so his life would be kind of the same roller coaster. But I'm just, just for me, man, it's like, why did everyone look older? And it wasn't like the 80s were the 1800s.
No, like
Like,
toddlers look like they were gags, like grease, or like
right,
leather jackets with
right.
like slick back hair. But dude, you're 7.
Mm. Yeah, dude. Like, what was it? The thing where you can go online, you can find the memes of, it's not a meme, but like a picture of like your favorite TV shows, like it was Sanford and Son or Cheers or whatever, and it's showing people's actual ages when those shows were airing, and you're like, holy crap, man! Like I think when Cheers was on, Norm was supposed to be 32, and Cliff
Yes.
Clavin was supposed to be 36.
Woody Harrelson was just out of college.
Yeah,
I'm like,
well, Cliff Clavin on Cheers, and I know I'm showing my age, but that dude looked 75 from like the get-go, and he's 36 or something,
right. Like he had literally just retired from the postal service. I'm like, how is
Well,
this
to,
guy?
to be honest, he looked late 40s. That's what
Yeah.
he looked like. He looked like late 40s and mid to late 40s, like my age. That's what he looked like, and or how I perceive that as looking. Fred Sanford was 46 on that show. Like that, he looked like a 60-year-old.
Yeah.
So I'm genuinely curious as to why that is. Like, there's got to be uh, I don't know what the reason is for it, but it's you know it's
Yeah.
interesting, man.
When you so if you look at our great grandparents and then all the knowledge of history and stuff that happened before them, they had it to that point. Then our grandparents, parents, us, and us in 150 years. Do you think like we it's interesting that us now have not only the knowledge of what happened before with our great grandparents all the time before that, just based on history books and whatever and stories, and here we are now. It's interesting how stuff is either circle like it comes back in full circle,
Yeah.
or we allow stuff to happen again. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
like,
We
especially in this day and age with the politics, where it's like you realize this has already happened twice, 3 times just in our country, and now we're letting it possibly happen again. It's like, at what point do we stop and be like, we have all this history and knowledge. Let's try and figure out how to maybe make sure this doesn't happen for the future generations.
well, I don't think it's that we don't remember. I think it's that we are made to forget. Because
Yeah.
if you look, if you, the people that drive whatever's going on right now, they're super intelligent, man. They're
Oh,
smart.
yeah.
Um, and they know this has all happened before, and they have a template of how to do it again, And it's just like they kind of purposely sort of don't bring up the past. They don't bring up what's happened. They talk about the future as if it's really the future, and what they're trying to build is, they're using the past as a guidebook to bring about, whatever socialism or whatever they want to bring about. Um, it's I mean, I've always been a history buff though, man. I like reading history, and I like looking back at um it's such an interesting thing to take these vast swaths of time, you know, and break them down into these nuggets of like a paragraph. Like you can take the French Revolution and explain it roughly, explain it in a paragraph. And that's what happens in history books in high school, right? It's like you take,
A
you know,
chapter.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Here's a chapter on the Revolutionary War. Here's a chapter on World War One. Here's a chapter on World War Two. And the 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 amount of micro trying to think of the right term, like micro events that have to take place, each little tiny piece that builds up to a World War One and then a World War Two, or a Revolutionary War or a Civil War,
Right.
or the Communist Revolution or the French Revolution or the Cuban Revolution or Cuban Communist Revolution or the Chinese Communist Revolution. You know, it's so much that I'm not saying we're headed that way now. I'm hoping we're not. But like when you look at what's going on now, when you do pay attention to history, and if you are versed in those things, I'm not an expert on any of it by any stretch of the imagination. I just enjoy history. But if you look at, you can start finding those micro events happening now. People say, well, we're headed toward World War III. Well, in a history book, we might already be in World War III, like a future history book. The fact that Ukraine's going on, the fact that everything's going on in the Middle East that has the potential to escalate quite quickly and probably will, because I think it's kind of planned to escalate quickly. I think the fact that we've sent warships to Iran, the fact that we funded Iran to build their military up so they would attack, knowing that they would attack Israel, and then we would be able to be in a war with, against Iraq, Iran. Um, we've already sent two aircraft carrier groups there. It's like, you know, the fact, so, that those aircraft carrier groups getting sent there in a history book probably wouldn't get mentioned. The funding of Iran probably wouldn't get mentioned, you know, except in in-depth history. When you're looking back, those are like those little tiny things that build up to what becomes, hopefully not, but possibly a World War III scenario, right? Um, in a history book, I think that if you were writing that paragraph, we would already be three sentences into that paragraph at this point, you know.
Which is
Um,
wild.
we just don't see it. And so that's the other thing too, man, is people are living their lives. And so just like with me with the birthday today, it's like most people aren't walking around going, "Oh, I wonder if we're in World War III already." They're just living their lives. And honestly, man, like if you look back at World War II, yes, the nation was the United States was engrossed in World War II, but there was all sorts of other stuff going on during that time. Movies were getting made,
Yeah.
people were going to coffee shops, living their lives just like we're doing now. This war is taking place way overseas. There were things that happened in the United States with U-boats and naval attacks that people don't ever even talk about. The fact that there were German U-boats off the coast of North Carolina and Massachusetts and South Carolina sinking ships on a daily basis, or on a weekly basis. But we don't ever hear about that, which is interesting. There's probably some propaganda wrapped up in that where they didn't want, and there were Japanese citizens being put in internment camps. We don't really talk about that either. Outside of those types of things, though, it was just kind of a lot of American life was just daily American life. Yes, there's people, sons and daughters, in some cases, were overseas risking their lives. So that was always playing in the background. It was top of mind um, for most families, right?
Right.
But my point being is that people were just going about their daily life and they weren't thinking about the fact that they were living history. They were just living.
Right.
And I think we're
It
doing the same thing now.
it's and I try and I mean probably 40 50% of my professional career has been in politics, and I've always said maybe I'm guilty and this is the wrong way of thinking, where it's like I don't care who the president is. It's really not going to affect my life or career per se. I mean, when you want to talk about finances and stuff like safety, sure, but I could still live my life and be completely ignorant if I chose to be. But now, especially the last couple of years, where I'm like that line of thinking, it's like to your point, we're on the verge of some insane parts of history possibly happening, and
Yeah.
me thinking that way, maybe it doesn't affect me, but maybe it affects a class ahead of me, behind me, next to me. Maybe it affects these other people in the world that we're all part of these living events now that, to your point, are slowly being stacked on top of each other to where this big event's going to happen, and now we're another chapter in a history book.
Yeah. I mean, also economically, like people don't like, I know look, everyone's being gaslit right now by the media and
Oh
quite
God.
frankly by the current political party that's in charge to believe that the economy's great. You're
It's
you don't understand how good the economy is. I know you feel like it might not be good, but it's great.
I know eggs
You know,
cost 4 times as much as they did 2 years
right?
ago, but
And this inflation that's been happening, and what did they say recently? They said, well, inflation's down 5%. Yeah, but it's still
still
up.
higher.
It's still up 35% from where it was in 2018. You know, so yeah, it's down. It's down from where it was last week, maybe. Inflation didn't grow. I think every year it's been growing like 25% since 2020 or 2019, and then last year it only grew 15%,
Right.
which is astonishing, man. It really is. Um, but look, I don't know about anyone else here, but I feel like the IRS and the government they tax us, they squeeze every little bit out of us that they can possibly get. And now Joe Biden is and the Democrats are putting forth this, and I'm not trying to get political with it. This is for everybody. This isn't
Yeah.
Democrat, Republican. This is a very serious reality. Um, they're talking about taxing unrealized capital gains. And what that means is if this were to pass, if Biden's putting this forward, he thinks it's a great idea to tax people, whoever's in charge. But the Biden administration thinks it's a great idea to tax people's unrealized capital gains because they don't have enough of our money already, you know. Um, and what that means is that if you are fortunate enough to be a homeowner, this is just an example. If you're fortunate enough to be a homeowner and you buy your home for $300,000 and it goes up in value over a couple of years because the housing market is and it appraises for $400,000. Well, they're not going to tax you on what your house the money that you have in your house. They're going to tax you on what it's worth. So they're going to tax you for money you don't even have. Unrealized capital gains, meaning that the potential is there for you to make money. Therefore, we're going to tax that money. And then, oh, by the way, when you actually do sell it for $400,000, we're going to tax you again on that $400,000. So he's wanting to tax you. The administration is wanting to tax you for money for uh, the money that your property is worth versus the money you have in it. You know, like that's asinine, man. Like you're just squeezing every single thing out of people. It goes back to my thing about United States is the money battery for the rest of the world. We are just money batteries, American citizens.
Yeah.
We're here to make money for them to do whatever they want to do with. So you think about the economic repercussions of inflation, of things like that, and then Kamala Harris's idea about capping, putting a price cap on what we can charge for groceries or whatever. And because inflation is so bad and because it's an election year and because she is part of the current administration, they need to um, uh, come up with a way to, because they know everybody's feeling the economy.
Everyone.
And you can't really lie about inflation too long. So her thing now is, and I'm sure you've heard her talk about this, is how the food companies and grocery companies are price gouging everybody. Well, that's not what's going on. They're just dealing with inflation the same way everyone else is. And so when she wants to cap the price of certain items. Well, that's how people starve to death under a communist system, is you cap the price of a good, and at that point, it's not the food. It's actually the government's fault that the inflation. It's the current administration's fault, and the Trump administration as well, because they were these bailouts that we gave everybody over COVID. They printed money and it inflated everything, right? Um, the current administration just continued with it after Trump did it the first time. So again, everyone's guilty for the inflation problem right now. But rather than letting the market just work through that, meaning that you're going to have to pay more for a while until we can get this thing under control, until this inflation, can even itself out. Uh, but what you do is you take away the competition. So you're telling companies that they can't charge what they need to charge for
to
goods.
to maintain their
Well,
company.
and at that point, in some cases, they won't be able to afford to make the thing anymore. Or
which
in other cases, they won't have any incentive to make the thing anymore because they can't make any money. Look, capitalism has pulled more people out of poverty than any other system ever in the entire world. I know there are people who hate capitalism, but if you let it run its course, what drives it? Potential, the potential for people to make money and become wealthy is what drives it. If you cap prices at the federal level and say it's illegal for you to charge any more than this for a loaf of bread, meaning the grocers and the food companies who make the bread, uh, you're taking competition off the table. You are saying there is no incentive, and in some cases, it's impossible for the company to make the thing or sell the thing and stay in business. People will, if that happens, shelves will be bare. That's what will happen. And I don't think it's going to pass. I think there's like a 0% chance of it passing. I think what it is if I had to guess, because these people aren't idiots. I'm not saying the candidates they put out there aren't idiots, but the people running the thing aren't idiots. They probably said, hey, they probably go to these food companies or to these, because how many times have you heard all politicians say evil billionaires need to pay their share and I'm going to tax the rich and I'm going to tax the billionaires and they never do
why don't we
because
punish them?
because it sounds great during a campaign. And probably what they do is they go to their billionaire donors, all of them,
Yeah.
Republicans, Democrats, everybody.
Everyone.
They go to their billion and they say, "Look, I'm really not going to do this thing, but I got to say this thing. So hang in there with me. I'm not going to tax you. I'm not going to fine you. I'm not going to price cap stuff, but I got to say that I'm going to do it because so I can get elected." And at the end of the day, that's really what's going on, I think.
to,
Um,
to kind of before when you talk about like the um like capping the food, and I just kind of just maybe this doesn't make sense to anyone listening to this. We are all idiots.
mhm.
But when it comes to like say capping like
Wild idiots.
wild savages, when it
Wild
comes to
idiots.
like capping eggs or milk or say pork chops or whatever, then you look at the fact that all these food farms and livestock farms being blown up, destroyed, chemical spills, these Chinese
Yeah.
corporations, Bill Gates buying American farmland, and all these people. It's almost like, what if they're like if God forbid that does pass, or they want something like that in place where now you have to eat what we tell you to eat, and it's to be all
Yeah.
not organic. It's all gonna be chemically, and it just seems like super. I don't know. It's just there's way too many coincidences when it comes to like the food, when it comes to cost, and what's actually happening to the farmers and all these people in these farms and places. Every other week, it's like something blows up. Where eight
Yeah.
hundred
I
thousand chickens, the second largest farm in Ohio, gets blown up. It's like no one's talking about this.
look at how many chicken farms have caught fire in
It's
the last 3 years, two
right,
years. Like it's really astonishing, and it's beyond coincidence. Like
correct.
these places just don't burn up and catch fire,
No,
you know. Um, and cattle farms, same thing, catching fire. Uh, it look, it's funny and it's haha and it's all this stuff to call people conspiracy theorists until the conspiracies quote air quote, start proving themselves to be right. And that's what happened over COVID. And this is why all this distrust, man. I'm not saying some of it's not purposeful. We talk about how intelligent some of these people are. Like our enemies want us to doubt our government, want us to not trust.
hell yeah, it's a great tactic.
Unfortunately for myself, like I'm in that camp now of like, you tell me something's red, I'm going to think it's blue instantaneously, or I'm going to be skeptical that it's red,
Yeah, well, what
you
color
know?
red? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And because during this COVID thing, we were told that everything was red. And then you, but we were looking at something blue, but being told it was red. We were being gaslit with a lot of things. And we're all going, I think that's blue. And like, no, 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 it's red. It's red. We're the government. Trust the science. It's red. And then you get into now, 4 years later, and it's like, yeah, it was really blue, but we had to say it was red. And they're saying these things now. And we all knew that, you know? So now it's like, they're wanting us to trust them with our food. They're wanting them to trust us with our economy and with all this. And it's like, I don't trust you. You've proven yourself to be untrustworthy more times than not. But this was glaring thing that was right in front of our eyes the whole time, and we knew that you were lying. So, yeah, man, when I see chicken farms catching fire, I'm like, that's really suspect. That's not normal. What's going on? And it causes me to go into conspiracy land, which honestly isn't conspiracy land anymore.
Correct.
We have access to so much information that we used to not have access to. And we can actually see, because we have people out there who are willing to do the work to kind of figure out what's really going on. You can kind of see, you can see behind the masks now whenever these things take place. And you can still watch it happen in real time. There's like the gaslighting that goes on with mostly peaceful protests, or uh you know that a Capitol police officer was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher on January 6th, neither of which happened,
Correct.
right? But these things get perpetuated in the media. They get they get uh they get you know every day probably someone comes out of their mouth, probably about a Capitol police officer was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher. you know I've heard it again and again, and there's no one there to go, hey, that didn't happen. There are people to do that, but no one who's given a platform really gets that point across, right? We're just gaslit into thinking that things, took place that didn't take place. Well, what would happen if we didn't have access to that stuff? You and I would think that a Capitol police officer was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher.
Correct.
We are fortunate enough to have the information that, hey, not a single Capitol police officer was killed by a protester on January 6th. Didn't
Correct.
happen. There were 3 people that had heart attacks, 2 people that had strokes, I think, and two of the things proven to be unrelated to what was going on. It was like heat and everything else, but
Correct.
beside the point.
It's almost like they
Not
don't
beside
want.
not beside the point, actually. Like that's a
Right.
point. Is like, you're told this was a deadly attack, and it's like, well, it wasn't really. But then you look at like protests that were going on after COVID, and people were actually dying, and you're told that it's mostly peaceful. You
Yeah.
know?
Cities burning down, people being
Yeah,
shot and killed. Yeah. It's
right. And by the way, this isn't a partisan thing, man. This isn't
it's everyone does it.
it's unfortunate now that if you don't fall into to a narrative that you're like some sort of, you're called alt-right or some right-wing fanatic, and it's like, no, I'm actually like not a right-wing fanatic. you know I call everyone out on their bullshit, right, left, whatever. It's
Yep.
just like, I just see bullshit, and you know
It's almost like they don't want solutions like medication, or like it's like it cures. You lose like the attachment to that person. It's like if they start solving these issues, like the other day I was on my friend Jill's podcast that she's starting, and she knows I don't like talk, and I really don't like getting political. I mean, people look at me and they just
yeah,
assume I'm conservative, which I am. But we're talking about the school shooting that happened last week in
yeah,
Georgia, wherever, and you mentioned the IRS, and it's like a couple of years ago, the IRS hired, I think, just over 87,000 agents to look for people, make sure you and I are not being taxed for
yeah,
Venmo transactions or
right,
PayPal or going
yeah,
after small businesses. Well, you look at the school shooting. Had you hired 87,000 off-duty military, former military cops, whoever, people, rifle gun owners to watch these schools, maybe a lot of the stuff would be happening. So it's like
yeah.
you
Well,
have the
but
money, resource to hire. You don't want solutions
no,
because
they don't. No, no, no. They
if
want they
it's
want
if
they want upheaval.
right, if it's gun violence and shootings, which are unfortunate, super tragic. I'm
Absolutely.
pissed. But next week it'll be disaster. Other week it'll be a chicken farm. Then it'll be oil. Then it'll be back to a war. It's like they create all this bullshit and they get us all riled up, hating each other. You hate your own family and your own house because you're listening to all this bullshit. And then when it comes to meeting in the middle, something else will happen, and then no one gives a fuck. It's like it's just so
Yeah.
disheartening that none of us like they don't want to solve any of this.
No, man, and again, it's a happy, well looked after, uh um
Machine.
thriving, well, a happy, thriving populace can't be controlled. You can control a scared, unhappy, disenfranchised people. And that's the point. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's like, well, it goes back to the VA, right? I think one of the first podcasts we ever did, we were talking
Oh,
about the VA,
yeah, your
right?
dad and all that
And
stuff.
yeah, and the fact that the VA is not funded well, it's not, um, it's not funded well, it's not run well, it's given shoestrings to run on. And you're told, well, we don't have the money. We don't have the money. We don't have the money to put the VA, just we don't have the money. The pri the the military spends more on one B-2 bomber than they spend in 3 years on the VA.
Correct.
Okay. So it's not that they don't have the money. Again, it's that the people who rely on the VA have outlived their usefulness to our government. And they want the shiny new toy, which is the weapon and they want the war. They want these people, these sick individuals in our government want the war, but they don't want to take care of the people who fight the wars for them. And all they would have to do is go, you know what? Here is, and it sucks that $1 billion isn't really that much anymore. Here's $10 billion. Let's fix the VA. And let's honestly, at the end of the day, because I have friends and family who have to deal with the VA, and I listen to them talk about what they have to go through to um, get treatment, mental health treatment too. You know, it's sickening. It's absolutely sickening. That why do we not the people that fight our wars for us? The I've got a friend who is getting ready to retire from the armed forces, and he's worried about what's going to happen with his benefits because it changes. You go from full benefits, full everything's taken care of to retirement benefits and all this, and it's like, why don't our soldiers and airmen and Coast Guard people and sailors and Marines, why don't they always get full coverage forever and ever? You put your life on the line. You signed on with us to help protect your country for 2 years, 20 years, 30 years, 5 years, whatever it is. And part of that benefit, part of you doing that is that we will now take care of you for the rest of your life. That should be a thing, but it's not because they don't care.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's um how do we get off on the subject, by the way? Because I want to bring it back around because you had asked a certain question and I went off on a tangent about the VA. Uh, uh, we're
No,
talking about
but basically how they don't want to solve any problems
they don't
we
want to solve the
have.
problem, right? Yeah,
Correct. Right.
yeah. When they could solve the problem of the VA could easily be solved.
Right.
Could
But why?
easily be solved. You know, the other problem is honestly, I feel like the military is a voting block, just like African Americans are a voting block, just
Yeah.
like Hispanics are a voting
Yeah.
block
Single white women are a voting
or a
block.
voting block, right?
Yes.
The the military voting block votes traditionally right wing, traditionally conservative. Let's say right wing. Not everybody, you know. I've got friends who are ex-military and military who don't vote, who aren't conservative. But traditionally that block is seen as that. It causes me to wonder. I wonder if that has something to do with it. Like there's one side going, we're not interested in helping you because you don't help us. Really. You don't vote for us. Which is odd because they rely on the military industrial complex for all of their money.
Do you find it
Um,
weird when, like, the other day I was watching the Thursday Night Football, the whole Taylor Swift thing, and like, it's weird how musicians, like, at what point do musicians have the other people decide that because Taylor Swift is voting Democrat, that all the Swifties or all these people have to vote Democrat, or Ted Nugent or Kid Rock or whoever, like Bruce Springsteen, like all these people, it's just like, why did musicians ever feel, I don't know, like it's just this whole thing's got me so like flustered because I'm like, why I'm not a Democrat,
right.
I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, but I love some of her music and some of her songs. And Brett showed me one last time we were on tour about a song she wrote about a mother that had a miscarriage. And I thought it was powerful, it was amazing. There's nothing political about it.
Yeah,
And her songs really aren't political either.
right.
But if it's just because she thinks one way and she's allowed to, why do we as fans of these artists' music feel get attacked for thinking, oh, because I love guns and I love Ted Nugent, I'm voting for Trump. It's weird.
Well, because the narrative is controlled by one side, really. I mean, at the end of the day. And I'm not telling, I would never tell anybody to vote one way or the other. You know,
Right.
I've got my sensibilities and I've got my things that I would get behind. And honestly, man, it's all over the map with me. It's like, uh, I'm just, you know, I know I talk an awful lot about the current administration because I think that they're out of their
Well,
goddamn minds,
plus it's
you
current,
know.
so it's like that's what we
Well,
have.
but I just think that they're doing some evil things. They know what they're doing, and I would be doing this if it were a right-wing administration doing this, right?
Correct.
Um, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with this totalitarianism that's going on right now. It's blatantly obvious if you just open your eyes and take half a second, and if you're honest with yourself, you know. Um, but yeah, I'm all over the map with stuff, man. So but as a musician, I know I've always said I don't, you know, my opinion should not taint the way people listen to our music, like in any way, and I don't want that to happen, and I would never
Right.
want that to happen. Um, you know, it's I am a live and let live type of person. I want everyone to be happy. I want you to live your life. I want you to love who you want to love. I want you to be, you know, be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be,
Correct.
unabashedly, 1 billion%. As long as that doesn't impede on other people's ability to do the same thing.
Correct.
That's where I draw the line, you know? And if we all just stayed out of each other's business, because it's a very libertarian way to think, because that's how I think, really. If we all stayed out of each other's business and the government stayed out of our lives, we'd be a lot happier. You know,
Correct.
not everyone is going to think the way you feel, think the way you think, feel the way you feel, be the way you want them to be, and you can't force them to be that way. Unfortunately, we're in a place now where that's become the thing is like, if you don't agree with me, I'm going to force you to think the way I think. I'm going to force you legally into being the way that I want you to be. And it comes from both sides, you know, and that's where we get a lot of the issues that we get. Um, when it comes to musicians, especially look, if you look at a Taylor Swift, dude, I would almost guarantee you that I don't even have to, I will guarantee you that she has been on the phone
Oh,
with the current administration, the same way The Rock was over the last election,
I
because he
know for a
talked about
fact that
he
that happens.
yeah. So they get a phone call and like, hey, you know, if you get behind us, we can really help you out with X, Y, Z, and W. These all these things that you want to do and accomplish. Like we can make that stuff happen. You know, oh, you want a tax break? How about this? We won't even tax you for your next tour, or
Yeah.
we
We'll
won't
hold the state taxes for your stadium
yeah.
tour.
How about no gas tax for any of your airplane
Yeah.
stuff? How about, you know,
Yeah.
like I'm not, these are hypotheticals. I don't know if these things have happened, but like that's the kind of stuff that goes on. And it's like, oh yeah, go vote for Joe Biden, go vote for Kamala Harris. My entire fan base, I'm gonna get behind it and we're all gonna vote. And what really sucks about it, man, is there's no reason given. There's no real in-depth I actually do. I'm very, very interested in people all over the political spectrum giving me an honest assessment of why they are voting for someone or why they think someone is a good
Correct.
choice. Um, because what it does is it really it can show you how well informed someone is, and the well informed people always make me think. If you can give me a well informed reason why I should vote for someone that I am not planning on voting for, or you can give me some insight into maybe why the person I think is a great choice isn't a great choice. You know, maybe you have some information I don't have. I love that. I mean, it can it can be maddening sometimes because you don't want to hear some of these things, but then it's like, oh, hang on a second. I'm not a hypocrite though. So like I need to listen to this. I need to pay attention to these things that are going on. Or it can show you how ill-informed someone is because their only reason why they're voting is not the other person. That's the only reason. That's the only reason they can give because they're
Right.
not the other person. Because
Right.
I was told by somebody at some point that this, and now my identity is attached to that. My identity, see, that's the difference between you and me. Is like you're a conservative, I'm a libertarian, probably more than a conservatarian or whatever, however you want to see it.
Yeah.
But like I would be, here's the thing. I'm a 90s liberal. Like 90s, like my view, the way I think about the world, if I step back in time, 90s, early 2000s, like I have more liberal viewpoints than I do conservative viewpoints for that time
Yeah.
when I was growing up, you know? Um, it's just things have gone so far left. Like the left has gone way left. And it's sort of like and the right has shifted, you know? And so now I find myself in this middle ground where I'm just like, when I was younger, it was like common sense won the day at the end of the day, just all
Right.
the way around. And now it's like common sense is considered this fringe thing on the right. And it's like, hang on, what happened? It's the Bill Maher thing. Like, you know, everything moved around me. I never moved. Um, but uh, you know, you, some, what was I getting at? I'm sorry, it's early. Uh, uh, the Taylor Swift thing, her just telling her fans to vote this particular way and the fans just going, okay, you know, that's just
Yeah.
that sucks, man,
But
because it's not that's not the reason to vote that way. You're given a couple of talking points. Usually they are scare tactic talking points. Like my favorite one recently about Trump is he's going to get in office and never leave. He's going to be a dictator and he'll never leave. And it's like he can't not never leave. Like or
correct.
he can't do that is my point. Uh, you know, he can't never leave. It's against the law. He won't. If he was never going to leave, he would have never left the first time. You know. But you're scared into these things. There are people who are legitimately scared about that. There are people that are legitimately scared that he's going to put you in camps.
Yeah.
It-
Project 2025 or whatever that.
it's not. Yeah, the
It's
project
just
that's the new thing, right?
it's
And
ridiculous.
he said I have nothing to do with that. Now he's a fucking politician at the end of the day, man. Like I can't
Correct.
I can't who knows if you can trust what's coming out of his mouth. I don't know, you know. Uh, but I'm going to do my research into it. Uh, one thing that's but this is where I'm at, and this is why I find myself in the position that I'm in politically is because I know what's going on right now around me. Like this current administration, and by the way, the people who have been in charge for the last since 2008, there's only been one administration. The Trump administration was the only time that like this group of people wasn't in charge recently.
28
4 years,
years. Yeah. I
four
think
four years worth, right?
yeah.
And it's like I'm
All
not better
this.
off. I'm not better off financially. My mental health is not as good as it was. You know, I pay attention to history enough to see what we were talking about earlier, how things are
Yeah.
kind of going. These people love war. They love to, they are laundering our money. In some cases, I think they're inflating our money on purpose. And I'm not saying, look, this would probably not be any different if there's a Republican administration also. But I think some part of me feels like the money is being inflated on purpose so that the dollar will lose its value, so that they can institute a global currency,
Currency.
right?
Yeah.
Digital currency. Because if you watch what they're doing is they're sending all this money over to Ukraine. Let's use Ukraine as an example. They are sending billions and billions and billions of dollars. Just send it all over there while they're at the same time inflating it. And they're saying, here's Zelensky, you can have, you can keep some of it and buy yachts and do your thing. But the rest of that money is going to come back here. The rest of that money is going to loop through Ukraine and come right back to the United States. And then when that money comes back here through the back door, these people are taking this money and buying assets. They're buying land, they're buying houses, they're buying gold, they're buying all this stuff with this money. And because when dollars become worthless because it's inflated so much and it collapses and we're having to carry wheelbarrows full of money to the store to buy bread, which everybody can laugh at that. That actually has happened in history before. Look, as in Germany called the Weimar Republic, their money became so inflated that people were literally taking wheelbarrows full of cash to buy a loaf of bread because it was worthless. The money was worthless. Uh, when that happens, those people will still have those assets, right? And then they'll be able to sell those assets for the new currency, and they'll remain wealthy. That's actually that's going on right now. So part of me feels like that's kind of what the plan is, right? So I see this stuff going on around me, and it's like, do I like Donald Trump's demeanor? No, you know,
Yeah, it's
is he? Sometimes I'm just like, just close your mouth,
yeah,
just shut up,
the
just don't,
crass
just don't,
arrogance.
just
Yeah,
don't say anything, just stop, you
yeah,
know. Uh, does he feel presidential to me? No, not at all. You know, but the thing is who does feel, here's a perfect example. Who does feel presidential? Well, Barack Obama feels presidential, right? He felt
yeah. He looked the
presidential.
part. He spoke the
He
part. Yeah,
felt, he
yeah,
felt good. Everyone felt good about that. Where did our feelings get us? Our
yeah.
feelings have gotten us here. And this is the other thing too. And I'm sorry this is a political episode. I'd much rather talk about Bigfoot, to be honest, and aliens.
Who do you think
Uh,
he's voting
but
for?
but
Bigfoot.
well, but let me. But here's the thing, man. Is if you look at this, and I am a empath. I am a feeling person. Like I am so emotional about things, so I understand this. People who have a tendency to be Democrat voters, everything is about feeling. Everything is about feeling. Everything is about I feel good about this person. They said the right thing, so it makes me feel good. It makes me feel good to vote for a person of color. It makes me feel good to vote for a woman. It makes me feel good, you know, to this stuff makes me, you know, I feel amazing about it. Right-wing voters tend to like facts. Show me the facts, you
Yeah,
know, and my so feelings have gotten. And by the way, dude, when Barack Obama became president, I was like, I'm on board. Let's go.
yeah,
Let's go. This feels good, right? Nothing ever materialized. The only thing that happened was the destruction of our healthcare system. That's what happened.
right.
Like literally, that's what happened. That's what took place. The fact that I pay $750 a month for healthcare every month, and I still have to pay out of pocket for procedures. Uh, that's what happened. You know.
You should just go down to
And by the way, I'm
Nicaragua.
I'm required by law to have healthcare insurance,
Correct.
to have health insurance, that I pay this much, and I have to pay that amount of money because I'm considered healthy, and because I'm healthy, I have to pay for all the unhealthy people.
Yeah,
You know, so it, socialism is alive and well. You know, that's what my feelings got me, and so uh, I look around and Trump doesn't make me feel good. I don't feel good about it, but I look at the reality of what's happening, and it's like, yeah, fuck my feelings, you know, fuck the
yeah,
way I feel about it, because I see what's happening if we keep going down the road we're going, right? All of that is a roundabout way of saying I am never going to tell anybody who to vote for. I love all of our fans. I would I don't judge people for being a certain way, and I'm not going to judge your intelligence either by telling you what I think you should do. That's the most you talk about offensive. That's offensive to me.
yeah.
Is someone using their, because there's a trust between an artist and the people that love what they do. There's a trust there. Like you feel like you know the person. They poured their heart out onto music or onto a canvas or whatever, and you it's a very personal thing, and you're taking that personal thing and going, vote the way I vote now, you know? And I think you're too stupid. I think you're too stupid to make up your own mind. So do this, vote this way, you know? And that just crosses the line for me, man. Like, I don't, the thing is, man, is at the end of the day, and by the way, it's not like I don't understand why people vote a certain way. I really do. Like, I understand why certain demographic, let's call them voting blocks, certain demographics vote the way they vote. A lot of that has to do with fear. And you've been talked into the fact that certain things are going to happen if you don't do X, Y, and Z, and it happens with Republicans too. Like right-wing politicians, you know, scare you with socialism, right? Let's scare you with this, and not that I don't see it happening. I do, but it's if Kamala Harris wins, we're all going to be living in communist China in 4 years. That's not going to happen either,
Right.
you know. Um, but kind of assuming, I just like I presuppose a certain level of intelligence in my audience when it comes to the music and the art. I do that with everything else in their lives. Like, our fans are smart, man. They're good people, and they vote the way they want to vote, and they have the political views that they have, and I don't care. I don't care. I don't care what your political views are. Like, I love you. I want you to be
And you didn't write a symptom of being human for left, right, donkeys,
no,
elephants, gay, straight, black, white. It's
no,
for
man.
everyone.
And
That's
and
yeah.
and I hear people go like some of these artists, dude. Like, God, man, this is an artist that I discovered recently that I loved. I absolutely loved. And but this dude, like a couple of months ago, is like, you know, if you think this way and blah blah blah, I don't want you buying my music anymore. In fact, fuck you. And it's like, Jesus, man. you
Oh,
know that's not why you do music. Like, I don't
that's
write music. I
pink.
don't
Yeah.
I don't write music for that kind of stuff. It's like a symptom of being human is for everybody,
Yeah.
you know and if like it's there to heal people. That's why it exists. And so, man, it's just a shame that this is where we've ended up as a species, that we've ended up in this place of right versus left, black versus white. Uh, uh, I'm more important than you are because of my political affiliation, or I'm, you know, uh, I'm worth more because of my skin color, or that stuff used to be really bad. Like, that stuff, like when I was younger, that, like, thinking like that was atrocious, man. You just didn't think like that, you know? And one more thing that speaks to all of that, though, talk about how we're made to feel. We're, this wedge has been driven into our society, and it's this side is evil and this side is good, and if you think like this other side, then you are persona non grata. Like, you're a terrible human being. But then those same people that say that in Washington all hang out with each other. It's one party up there. When the cameras are on, it's right
Right.
and left. When the cameras turn off, everybody's hanging out, and they're all buddy buddy because they're all making their money. And the sooner that we all wake up and realize that's what's being done to us as a society. I'm not saying we shouldn't have political opinions. I'm not saying that you shouldn't vote for your best interest and your family's best interest. That's paramount. But the way we're made to feel about each other about those choices is scripted, and and it's made up. The whole thing's made up.
Right.
Let's not talk about politics anymore.
Yeah. No. No. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. It's just I don't know. It's one of
No,
those
no, no.
things where it's
No,
like
no, no. It's not. I'm not blaming you. I'm
it's just
laughing because, like, I got off on that subject, like, just as
well, it's one of these because people we get messages all the time, and people are like, hey, I love how you guys are able to talk about politics where it doesn't feel uncomfortable. It comes off as very like two people trying to discuss what you don't have to agree with everything, but at least
yeah.
openly talk about without the name calling. And it's like you turn on social media today, it's just like that's why the other day, this past week, like Elton John and The Rock were both kind of like asked in a interview type thing, what was when they wanted them to start talking shit about Trump, and the guy for Elton John, who's obviously has always voted Democrat,
Yeah.
the guy asked him, he goes, "Hey, I know you're not a fan of Trump, but what do you think of when Trump called Kim Jong-un Little Rocket Man and gave him a signed CD of Elton John to him as a gift?" And Elton John goes, "I thought it was funny. I thought it was great." He goes, "I've never had an issue with Donald. We've always been cordial. I know he loves my music. I've played his venues."
That's
And
it.
it was such a great, and everyone was just like, "Oh, he's voting Trump." And it's like, no, he's not saying voting for Trump. He's
God,
dealing with
man.
this.
Yeah.
So a couple days later, I went to couple this weekend, The Rock's doing a panel somewhere, and they're like, "So with the politics and stuff, I know you got in some hot water with your fans when you endorsed Biden in the last campaign, or whatever." He goes, he goes, "I stuff changed. Like I get facts, and that's what politics are in life, and stuff changes." And you're like, "Well, what do you think of Donald Trump?" And the Rock's like, "You know what? He uh he asked me to do the people's eyebrow. What the first time I met him, I did it." He goes, "He's always been nice to me. I've wrestled his venues. I know he's a fan of wrestling. He's done a ton of
Yeah.
stuff for the WWE. He's been a huge champion of all the charity work we've done with them." And he goes, "That's it." He goes, "There's nothing more to it. I'm not gonna say anything bad about him." And so it's just like, you know what? This is how you deal with the grace of politics.
Dude, my life would be so much less rich if I didn't have people in it who didn't think, if everyone all thought the way I think, all my friends thought the way I think, my life would be so much less interesting and less rich than it is, and I've said this ad nauseum on here. I don't pick my friends based on political affiliation. I
Yeah.
don't I don't pick the people that I love based on that. I don't write people off because of that.
Yeah.
Um, it's in fact, it's quite the opposite, man. I find myself the conversations I enjoy the most, I feel, are with people who I shouldn't agree with on paper. But the
Yeah.
thing is, man, is in those conversations we always find common ground, because at the end of the day we all want the same thing. We all want our families to be happy. We all want our lives to be simple. you know uh we don't we Very rarely do any of us want the complication of government involved in anything we're doing. And uh look, there was a show recently that we played up in California somewhere, and one of our friends' families came out. Um and uh it wasn't obvious, but like, they probably wouldn't agree with me politically on certain things. Dude, I sat there and talked to them for 2 hours after the show and had like the best conversation with these
Yeah.
people. Like, I really enjoyed it. Like, I didn't want it to stop. Like, I was like, let's go, man. And they were, again, man, these people were just so full of joy, and they were happy. And we realized we didn't agree on certain things. So we talked. Somehow things end up on politics all the time, right? But the thing is uh we talked honestly about it. There wasn't like all this like, hype and doom and gloom and so and so is going to destroy the country. No, this person is going to destroy the country. And it wasn't any of that, man. It was like uh it was really just we didn't only talk about it. We talked about music. We talked about all sorts of stuff. And I went away from that conversation just like feeling so fulfilled. Like, it was a great conversation, and it was a great to meet these people. They were a lot of fun. And uh you know if I were to play the game that I am sold by left wing and right wing media, you know I was supposed to confront them about their views, try to convince them that they're wrong, or I'm not. This is a right wing thing that sucks, man. Is right wing people will tell you, I'm not gonna say far right, certain people in the right wing sphere
Oh
will
yeah.
tell you that democracy is in its stake, and if you don't fight all the time, blah 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 blah, fight 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 all the time, and it's this curmudgeonly, you know, uh, uh, off-putting way to be. If I were to listen to those people, I was supposed to go into that interaction and fight and push and convince, and that's not normal, man. It's just not normal. You know, I know we're not in normal times right now, but the sooner that we find that common ground and have those great conversations. And dude, I felt very loving at the end of that of those of that conversation. I
Yeah.
think it was 5 or 6 people. Uh and I felt so good about it when I was finished, man. I was like, I want to hang out with you all. Like, can we hang out
Yeah.
next time I'm here? Uh the sooner we all do that, that's the fight. That's the fight that needs to happen from both sides. The fight is see each other's differences, accept each other's differences, and realize that we have more similarities than those differences. And uh and have a good fucking time with each other, man. We're not here for very long.
Yeah.
You know, I
And I like those. One of my really good friends on tour, uh, with is a I am a white Christian American. He is a gay white liberal Canadian,
okay.
and we'll be drinking and stuff. And we know exactly what to say to trigger the other person, like, oh, Trudeau,
Yeah.
blackface, or
Right, right,
Trump,
right, right.
grab on pussy. Like,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
know that type of stuff. And it's like the other recently we had a couple of days off in, God, I think Iowa of all places. And like it didn't get heated, but we're so different politically, but we can have those conversations where I think people outside of that, if they were hearing it, would be like, holy fuck, they're gonna come to blows. But we are passionate. And then an hour later, he's like, hey, I'm thinking about going to this burlesque show. It's in the Midwest. God knows what the fuck this is going to even look
Yeah,
like.
right.
But I go, I'll go with you. He goes, really? I go, dude, I don't give a fuck. You're my friend. And it's
Yeah,
like, we leave there, go to the bar after. And he's just like, you know what? It's like, it's interesting how it's like we can be so vastly different, yet be so like actually enjoy each other's like friendship. And it's like, dude, that's
yeah,
all this is.
yeah.
That's all. We don't have to agree. You disagree. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to show up for you and you're going to show up for me. It's like, I
Dude,
can't ask for anything more than that.
that's it. At the end of the day, man, this is what it's a great way of putting it. I show up for you at the end of the day, no matter
Correct.
what.
Correct.
And it's like I will show up for injustice. I will show up for my friends. I will show up for whatever
Correct.
at the end of the day. You know,
Correct.
it's
Yeah.
and but here's the thing. Here's the thing though. Like that has to be reciprocated, right? And it's those people in my life who will show up like that at the end of the day for me if I need it. You know,
Yeah.
even if they don't agree with certain things that I and again, I don't think I have any I don't have any controversial views. Like I don't again, I'm very much like you know, libertarian to a fault sometimes. That people are like, "Why don't you take a stance on this?" It's like cuz I don't really have a stance on that. You know, I don't have a stance on gay marriage. I don't have a stance on uh you know, I have a my stance is this. Read the Constitution, abide by the Constitution of the
And
United
you know
States,
what?
you
Right.
know, and leave everybody the fuck alone outside of that. Like the Constitution is protecting everyone's rights. I'm not it should be no one should tell anybody else how to live their life and how to be happy. At the end of the day, that's what I believe. Those are my beliefs. You know, unfortunately these days, I say unfortunately, but these days that aligns more with right-wing stuff than it does with left-wing stuff. But I promise you the pendulum swings all the time. And if I fast forward to probably 30 years from now, I might be left-wing, you know, depending because the right wing would probably look the right wing in the 80s and 90s was warmongery, you know,
Oh yeah.
lying about going to war, you know, all about the military industrial complex, all, you know, so it's like that's what I mean. I'm more of a 90s Democrat than I am you know, a Republican in that way. And so if I just stay constant where I am, everything else just swings around me. Unfortunately, right now you're, you know, the prevailing thing with if you listen to the media is that if you have any sort of right-wing leanings, you're a racist and a homophobe. And I was like,
Yeah.
God, I am
Yeah.
none of those
Right.
things.
You endure school shootings because you
I
don't want to you defend the
well,
right to bear arms. It's
well,
like, what?
yeah, I am none of those things. Like none of those things.
Right.
And uh so I just kind of stay where I am and just like kind it's interesting. That's why I don't I know we talk a lot about it on here, man, but I don't stump my opinions out about anything. I'm hyper aware of politics. I'm hyper aware of everything that goes on around me politically. And so I have opinions about it, but I'm not stumping for anybody, you know. Um, I encourage everyone, and I've done this before you vote, I encourage everyone to vote, first of all. And that, that doesn't mean vote the way I vote your conscience, vote the way you want to vote.
Correct.
uh Let your voice be heard because it's important, but in doing that, really pay attention to what people's platforms are on both sides, all independent, Democrat, Republican, whatever. Like, before I walk in to vote, I'm that boring person who will go through and research the candidates, local candidates, state candidates, national candidates, about what their platforms are. And I will vote Democrat, I will vote independent, I will vote Republican, depending on what that person's stance is and what their views are, and what they align with. Do they align with me on certain things? Do they not align with me on certain things? I've chosen not to vote for particular people on the ballot. I just don't vote for them because there's no choice for me there that I feel is morally right.
Yeah.
I encourage everyone to do that. If we all did that, I think we'd live in a much more sane world. You'd still have politicians being politicians, but the world could be a bit more sane if we all did that. Um, instead of just voting for the thing you're told to vote for by a celebrity or by a TV channel or by, a talking point or by a YouTube video or whatever, a
Right.
headline or a meme or whatever, you know. And there's some responsibility with that. It's not fun, it's not easy. It's not, the thing I want to wake up and do every day, but when the time comes, it's
Right.
every 2 years, every 4 years, being responsible and doing that is a good thing. Um, but hey, how did the let's let's turn away from that. How did the Bigfoot thing go down? Did everybody dig it?
Yeah, I think a lot of the best people, like, it's so cool to actually talk about this in a mainstream way, and the people are kind of shocked that they pictured. I guess a lot of the comments and the message people like, "Hey, keep talking about this stuff." They're like, "Hey, talk about the chupacabra," or I think it was, which is awesome. But a lot of I think the resounding thing was like the idea of the Bigfoot's not just a ape creature, not just like this furry animal, like this big tall
Yeah.
hominoid thing. Like, what if there's something more to like the paranormal, the vibrations,
Yeah.
the entity idea of it, like the spiritual aspect of a Bigfoot. And I think people are just kind of like, this is what, and like they're like, all the shows you see out there are people that want to shoot this thing with a shotgun. But
Right.
so then Dando in the write up post the YouTube links for the documentaries and stuff you mentioned, and people are like, "Dude, this is so rad!" And it's like, it's kind of cool that people are able to kind of like reach out to those documentarians as well and just be like, "Hey, like, heard about you on this podcast, and this is a super rad approach," and like opens up the whole idea that what this actually could be, or maybe you don't have to agree with it, but it's
Yeah.
different than just a bunch of farmers who heard some bear traps get triggered and now they're going to shoot this Yeti thing in the woods. So it's just like
Yeah,
it was
man.
cool.
I'm gonna look up this guy's name so I get it right. I'm not being rude and coming off the podcast, but I did mention something. I wanted to mention this guy because I kind of called him out a little bit on the uh on the podcast last week. Yeah, let's see, hang on a second. I want to get his name right. Uh but anyways, the guy from Expedition Bigfoot, because I remember I said this, this guy's like this hardo uh military guy, and he's running through the woods looking for, Russell Acord is his name, ex-military guy. I saw there was a video of him on that. The one thing I like about A Flash of Beauty YouTube is that they interview a bunch of people. They interview people that maybe don't fall into the woo side, that are more the aper side of Bigfoot. And Russell said there was an interview with him. It was about 10 minutes long, and he said that he was like, I don't buy into the paranormal thing, but he's like, I know a lot of people have had experiences like that. And he's like, if it came to light that like that was a part of it, he's like, I'd be accepting of that. Like, you know, so he was just saying from his viewpoint, like, it doesn't, he's never seen anything or had anything happen that didn't make him feel like it was just an ape in the woods, or just a flesh and blood thing, and that was it. Um, but that he's open to the other side. And I thought that was very cool.
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of back to what we're talking about with politics, but it's more, it's like, hey, keep an open mind to things. Um, so I appreciated him, seeing that interview and seeing him talk about that, and uh the interest. But what we were talking about, though, what I would say to him is, again, I have no experience, but if you listen to these people, it is a flesh and blood thing. It just has these weird capabilities that seem weird. And look, man, I was about to say, when you were talking about chupacabra, I was like, I don't know what I think about chupacabra, because it's like, it's, you know it could be anything and blah blah blah, but it's like, hey man, what if all these paranormal things, like the chupacabra and the Bigfoot
Loch
and
Ness
the Loch
Monster.
Ness monster,
Yeah.
like literally can, like, come in and out, like we were talking about Bigfoot, like kind of come in and out of
Well, you look at that guy that the thing manifests itself as the familiar buck or the deer he's always saw in his
yep,
yard.
yeah, yeah,
What if these chupacabras could be like just the? They're just it's
yeah.
such a fascinating way to like approach the spiritual and not necessarily the physical aspect to what this stuff could be.
Yeah, man, there's a guy on that channel that I was watching this week, and I'm cycling through to find names. I told you all last week I'm horrible with names and horrible remembering this stuff. But he uh he gets more into the government conspiracy side of it, because he's had some contact with some people who, you
Yeah.
know, and for one of the things he was talking about is, let me just see if I can find his name so so people can go watch it if they want to. Um, I think it's yeah, Henry somebody. I'm trying to get Henry's last name here. His name is Henry Franzioni. Henry Franzioni, Franzoni. Uh, he is talking about how, uh, basically, when Einstein came up with his theories of general relativity, special relativity, all this stuff, that he doesn't have he he thinks this. Okay, I'm not saying he has proof of this. He claims that he has proof that that there is um an extra part of the equation that multiply you can multiply Einstein's equations by this extra equation that our government figured out, that if you just multiply his equations by this, it gives you actual physics. And so we're kind of caught up in this world of, like, sort of physics, and that's why all the physics stuff seems to have stopped, like we talked about before.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like we had all these great physics breakthroughs, these phenomenal physics breakthroughs in the early 20th century, and then all of a sudden it just stopped.
So maybe
And
Einstein knew that and wanted to put a curve on
his
it.
his thing was like, Einstein, he believes that Einstein knew this because Einstein was too brilliant not to know it, because it's very simple. Uh, Evidently it's simple, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that Einstein knew this and he left it off of the equation, but there are other people he told it to, right? But he said basically what it is because Einstein was basically giving you a mathematical formula for that represents our physical world, right? Like, here are the mathematics for our world. That's what he was giving everyone. But he left out this one important piece. And that one important piece is the thing that is, we're talking about, zero point energy, or the UFOs having these zero gravity engines, so to speak, or a Bigfoot being able to morph in and out of being able to be seen, um, turn into an orb, or UFOs turning into orbs, this kind of thing. That multiplier that you did with that equation is what it explains that stuff and makes it possible. And then our government has that part of the equation. And we spend a lot of time on here talking about how government is bad and government is this, but it's interesting to listen to his perspective on it, because he's like, it's not that they're bad and they don't want us to have this thing. because they don't want us to have it. It's that it has in that thing is the potential for more destruction and danger than the atomic bomb. Like if you just gave this out to everyone and everyone understood this, with human beings being as some human beings being as evil as they are, not everyone, but the people out there who have ill intentions, the psychopaths, the sociopaths, they get a hold of this thing. It can be a wildly destructive force. And that's why it hasn't been put out there. And that's why Einstein left it out too.
Right.
Because just a glimmer of that was the Manhattan Project. You
Yeah.
know, the
Yeah.
fact that Einstein was involved, and they brought him into that. You know, him and with Oppenheimer and everything, but yeah, because Einstein, I feel, had the knowledge, you know, of how to make that thing work, and uh, you know, was goaded into it probably, and Oppenheimer was goaded into it because it's like, hey, we need to end this war. And I'm not saying that that's not what it was, because I do fall into that camp of people when it comes to nuclear annihilation of World War II, what happened in Japan, which is just a horrible, horrible thing to think about, man. Like it
Yeah, terrible.
really, God, it's just like you put yourself in that, it's just
It's
unimaginable.
insane.
But you think about, well, what had happened if we had to put boots on the ground in mainland Japan? You know, just look at the loss of life in Okinawa alone. You know, um, and I've been there. I don't. Have you ever been to Okinawa?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, it's humbling, man, to stand there and think about the amount of lives lost in that place during World War II. It's in the hundreds of thousands of people
Correct.
just on that one island. American lives and local and the people that live there. But do I believe that it brought a swift end to the war? Yeah, I do. And I believe that, you know, did it save ultimately more lives? Probably. But the thing is, man, is it opened up this box that can't be closed ever, you know, of destruction, potential destruction of cities and of human, just unimaginable destruction. And so what if that secret, that thing that again, to bring that back around, is that Henry's theory is that Einstein knew this. Einstein knew that the potential destructive properties of if all of this information is let into the wrong hands. And look, man, it's very possible that the Germans had a lot of that. They seem to have been working on a lot of like really interesting technological things before the end of World War II that seemed way more advanced than the rest of us than what the rest of the countries had. Uh, and we got all their scientists at the end, you know, which is also interesting. We allowed all of those Nazi scientists to live out the rest of their lives in the United States,
Yeah.
consequence
Conveniently.
consequence free. One of those Nazi people was Werner von Braun, who ended up running NASA. Uh,
This is
so
crazy.
that's a whole other rabbit hole if you want to go down Operation Paperclip,
Paperclip. Yeah.
Paperclip, yeah,
Yep.
where all the Nazi scientists came and worked for the United States at the end of World War II, and basically ran NASA and all of our secret weapons programs and everything.
And all the fake
Uh,
moon landings. Yeah.
yeah, well, I don't know how I feel about that, man. There's
That's a
so
whole
many.
other rabbit hole
Well,
too,
yeah,
man.
we should do something on that because I need to do more research on it. I am of the camp of we probably went to the moon, man. I think recently there have been pictures that have been
So
taken
do you
by.
think those people that are in space are actually up in space?
I do, yeah, for sure,
I
I
would
do.
so someone on X was like, I don't think these people are really it's like almost it's like a parody account, but he says stuff where it's just like these people aren't really in space. This is all just a distraction.
Well,
And
you
like
can.
people will kind of do a thing, but then someone put like in a video where it's just like it made you kind of go,
I've seen that, yeah,
if they could lie about pandemic, and I'm
right.
not saying lie, if they could do what they did during the pandemic, you don't think they could do with a couple of assholes up in space? And they're not assholes, but like the actual idea of is this really
Yes.
happening or is this just another distraction?
No, I'm with you on that, man. Like again, I've become so quote air quotes conspiratorial I'm
Yeah.
not saying I'm a conspiracy theorist, but like I think like that now. I'm like, what are you lying to me about?
But
Um,
fuck, if they are up there, and I'm with you. I think, what are you gaining from lying about this? Could you imagine when they finally get back down here, the books they could write, the movie deals?
so I'll
Put
tell
me
you
in
what
that
I've
position.
and I have not done any independent research on this at all. And I am, for God's sakes, man, I am not trying to delegitimize or make light of the potential loss of life. Let me say that before I even start with this, because that's something you have to enter into with any of these conspiracy theory or potential conspiracy theories or questioning anything, especially when there's loss of life. You don't want to uh, 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 make light of that stuff or make it seem like it didn't happen. But and I have not done the research on this, but something that I have seen recently, and I'm sure you have too, is the thing about the Challenger astronauts, where
Oh yeah, where they've there's
potentially, and again, I've just seen this, I've not researched this,
yeah
but that it's very interesting that uh, certain people have found other individuals alive who appear to be these astronauts' twins, some of them keeping the same name, who are now professors at colleges or running companies. And I believe in like four or five of the cases, like it was like, oh, they have identical twins. And it's like, hang on. That's very odd. You know, it's
yeah.
a weird rabbit hole to go down,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Now, for what purpose would they have blown up the Challenger and said that those people died and they didn't die? I don't know. So my rational brain goes to that. It's like, come on, man. It's like those people died up there, and it's a tragedy, and that's what it is. But sometimes you're given information or you're given things to look at, and you're like, huh, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Same thing with the moon landing. It's like I feel like we went to the moon. I feel like there's enough evidence of it. I feel like, you know, the spacecraft that are up there orbiting the moon right now have sent back pictures of the landing sites, and you can see the stuff on the moon,
Yeah.
and it is what it is. But then I'm like, yeah, but they could doctor that, you know.
When
Uh,
six people can have access to what it's the
the moon
images
the
of
moon is a weird thing. The moon is the weirdest satellite that we know of, man. It is the perfect distance away from the Earth for the
sun and like
for
all
the
the
sun to get a full eclipse. It we only ever see one side of it. It's in a synchronized orbit with Earth to where we only see one side of the moon ever. That's all we ever see. We don't ever see we don't ever see the backside of the moon. Uh,
how
all
many
of the
people have been in
all of the
space?
it's in the couple hundreds, 200, 200, 300, 200
And,
people.
that's such a
Yes.
small number of people to basically sign an NDA affidavit and say, hey, whatever you see or experience up here, you can't talk about
You
unless it
you
comes
don't
scripted from us.
you don't ever hear about a poor astronaut. I'm
You
just
really
saying.
don't. You really do. You never see a 9 to 5 astronaut.
All the astronauts are pretty well off, man. I'm just saying. Uh, but the fact that all of the craters on the moon apparently are all the same depth. Doesn't matter if it's a small crater, big crater, doesn't matter. So everything that's ever hit the moon just happened to only carve out they happen to all carve out the same amount of moon
Right.
rock. Like nothing can penetrate past a certain point. The fact that when NASA flew, they put sensors on the moon and they launched a projectile into the moon, and that it rang like a bell for like days, like it's hollow. It vibrated for like days.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I think the misconception there is like, oh, us Americans, it's a satellite, like all that, it's a Death Star type bullshit. But it's like, what if we're realizing it is, but we're not the ones that put it up there?
well, no, we're not the ones that put it up there. Like that's the
Right.
point.
So it's
Like
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 there's
like
this wasn't built in Houston and kind of like airlifted up with no one knowing.
yeah, we are billions of the Earth is billions of years
Right.
old. Like think about that for a second. If our civilization blinked out of existence tomorrow, within 100,000 years, 100,000 years, there would be no evidence left that we ever existed. Okay? And people say, well, what about fossils? Well, okay, we have fossilized, and I know most people know this, but fossilized remains aren't bones. They are bone that has turned to rock. It's been
Correct.
there so long. So we're actually seeing rock that used to be bone. Uh, but what about the fossilized remains of things? It's like, yeah, well, so we have fossilized remains of dinosaurs. That was 65 million years ago, which is a long time,
Yeah.
billions of years old. Those fossilized remains are going to be crushed and done in another 100 million years,
Yeah.
right? It is wildly possible that there have been several fully developed, fully realized uh, uh, societies and civilizations on our planet prior to us being here. Who knows what the moon is? The moon could have been literally, I'm not saying it was, could have been literally built and put there by a form of civilization on Earth. We could have figured out some tech to put this satellite up there for other purposes. I don't know. You know, Maybe it came from somewhere else. Maybe it's just our fucking moon. Maybe it's just rock left over from the formation of the solar system, just like we thought. Like maybe the Earth had a collision with another body, and that rock that came off orbited the Earth. It all coalesced into a moon.
Yeah.
Totally possible. It's just the mathematical weirdness of the moon. Look that up at some point. Look up the mathematical oddities of our moon and the coincidences that have to take place for our, like it's the coincidences that are our moon is
Fucking Earth too. Yeah.
super interesting, man. And I will say this, I will say one thing that I buy into about the moon landing, that I don't think the moon landing was fake. I think that the live feed from the moon that we were getting, right? Remember in 1969, the live feed was
Yeah.
not a live feed. I would not be surprised if that's not where the whole Kubrick moon
Hey,
fakery thing comes from, because again, we were in a space race against the Soviet Union.
yeah.
We wanted to freak them out and let them know that we were way more advanced than they were.
Yeah.
I don't think we had the ability to send a live feed from the moon at that time. Because if you think, it's just at light speed, I forget how many seconds it is in between. We didn't have the ability to send a light speed camera uh uh well, it's always going to be sent at light speed. We're not doing the light speed. The light speed is just the transfer. That's why
Correct.
Wi-Fi works. That's why this works right now. You could be in Germany and this would work because it's
I
traveling at
am.
light speed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but anyway, I just don't think we had that technology. So I think that what we were seeing as a live feed was a set, probably, to make people think we were watching a live feed.
Yeah.
And what did that do? Well, it made people go, "Oh wow, look at this live feed from the." It made everyone. It took the entire world and focused everyone on a moment, which I don't think has ever happened since, really, in that way. Nothing has grabbed the world's attention like that.
Well, it's like with
And
Joe Biden in the fake White House.
but it grabbed the Russians' attention for sure, and
Oh
they
yeah.
saw this live feed from the moon. What are they thinking? You know, um, do I believe that some of the footage that came from the moon after that, the filmed stuff? Yeah, I believe that all the filmed footage is or most of it was probably filmed there. Um, and also, man, remember there's a TV interview with Buzz Aldrin where he kind
Oh
of where he
yeah.
kind of said that. He kind of went, "Oh, what you were seeing was a what did he say? You can
What?
find it somewhere." Buzz
Yeah.
Aldrin talks about the moon landing being filmed, but like you were seeing a recreation of what was happening.
A
He said
reenactment
he's
of
a
you were
reenactment
watching
of
a reenactment of what was happening in real time, or
yeah,
something like that, where it's like,
yeah.
what?
So that leads me to believe that that's probably where all of that conspiracy stuff comes from. Look, people want to talk about the angles of um
Curvature, the
well
light,
they talk about all the shadows should be going in one direction and
yeah,
all this
the
stuff.
flag
But
moving.
but if you look at pictures of Earth right now with the sun coming in from perspective, from whatever your perspective is that you're looking, all those shadows aren't all going the same direction. It doesn't happen. And then you take into account a wide angle lens, which a lot of the stuff would have been a wide angle view. that's going to
It's
distort.
gonna skew it. Yeah, yeah, for
It's going
sure.
to distort where where shadows are going. Man, there's some weirdness with like certain rocks they say that have like letters on them, like you can see on the ground, like it'll be this rock, but it'll have the letter C on it. Some of that might be, and then later on it's photoshopped out, like not really photoshopped, but painted out. Back in the day, they would paint the pictures to make them look to clean
Right.
them up. But if you think about like that, maybe that's a seed is on the film of the camera, just like those X's or the crosses are on some of those things, and some of those things were for the camera, uh, the lens would have these crosses on them that were there to line to align certain things. It's very strange, man. We can get into it at some point. I probably need to go down to. I've never watched any of those documentaries. I've never watched the 9/11 documentaries. I've never watched the moon landing documentary, the space shuttle documentary where they try to debunk all this stuff.
Hmm.
I did go down that we talked about. I did go down the flat Earth thing one time, and because I was interested because I had never heard of it before, and I started seeing people post about it. And there's a lot of compelling stuff with that. Like if you just take it at face value, you're like, huh, that's true. I never thought about that. Why is this way?
Yeah.
But then, at the end of the day, it doesn't really hold water. But I enjoy going down those rabbit holes. Uh,
It forces
it-
you to kind of research different aspects that you never would have thought about that way, or how someone interprets that piece of evidence. Be like, I never thought of it that way.
yeah, yeah, man. So it's uh, it's super interesting, and uh, I'm willing to go down some of these rabbit holes for the sake of this podcast. If people want to hear about moon landing stuff, or they want to hear about Challenger explosion stuff, and again, man, the danger you get into is like 9/11 stuff. The danger you get into with those
Malaysia
things.
Air.
Well, dude, I
we
went
got
way
we
down
gotta
that.
do that. We gotta do that one.
I went way down that rabbit hole. But here's the thing, man. You know, it doesn't take away from the fact that people lost their lives in those situations, right? So you don't want to ever belittle those things by having your wild conspiracy theories or entertaining conspiracy theories. It doesn't, and that would be something I'd want to make sure that and we're saying it now, but that's something I'd want to make sure that we talk about when we enter into these conversations
Correct.
is like, I'm not here to try to quantify somebody's loss or tell them, that their family was in on some conspiracy or, you know, that's the thing I think about that Challenger thing. It's like I can look at those pictures and go, if that's true, because I have not researched it, but if that's true, that it's very ironic. It's very weird that these people have doppelgangers that are the right age that have the same
Oh,
names that have, it's odd. It's weird. In some cases, they talk about how they have identical twins, and it's like
it's
that's
like
odd.
you also would have known that too. It's like when you don't, especially now with today with astronauts, it's like I almost feel like when they announce like the new crew, like you know everything about that person. At least
Yeah,
when you read the right article, you're like, oh, you got two kids. She's a whatever. He's a whatever. He's from here. His dad was. So it's
yeah,
like I don't know. When you put someone in space, you would think you'd be one of the things you'd be like, oh, he's got a twin, or four of these people have doubles. It's like what? And what's the irony of this? The chance of
yeah.
this actually being a
It's
real
it's it's interesting. I mean, you think about the Kelly brothers, right? Mark Kelly and what's his brother, the astronauts, Mark Kelly and who's the other one?
Geo.
Uh, uh, but one of them spent. I mean, here's the other thing. Like you talk about, like, do you think those people are really up there? That one guy, one of the Kelly
Oh, he was
brothers,
up there a bit.
he was up there for like over a year, you
Yeah.
know, and so I don't think that guy was like faking being in space for a year. I mean, how sad does your life have to be? You would really have to be financially, but again, we're talking about how financially compensated maybe that's part of it. Like, hey man, you'll never have to worry about another thing a day in your life. Just go. We're going to send you to we're going to send you to a
Tahiti.
missile. We're going to send you to a missile silo in Wyoming for the next year, but it'll be worth it, you
Yeah.
know. Uh, so it wasn't. Am I wrong in remembering? Wasn't his wife because Gabrielle Gifford is his wife?
Correct.
Gabrielle Gifford, the the
She
the
got
sen
shot.
senator or congresswoman who was shot. Yeah,
Yeah, in
like he
Colorado,
was
I
in
think.
space when that happened, right?
I believe so. And he was just on he was just running for some, I think.
Well, he was he's isn't he a senator from Arizona or something now, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he was potentially up for the VP thing with
Yes. Yeah.
Harris.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, uh I mean, like, dude, like, imagine, like, if again, I might be
Oh,
misremembering this, but I believe he was in space when it, so, like, if my wife was shot and I was just sitting in a bunker somewhere, fuck you and your money, you know. No, maybe not. Maybe he wasn't in space when that happened. Either way,
maybe
look,
he
man,
hated her. I mean, we don't know.
if nothing else, at the end of the day, man, if nothing else, this stuff's fun to think
It
about,
works a different part of your brain. That's why I
Yeah.
like talking about this stuff, because a lot of stuff I talk about with the conspiracy stuff, I don't agree with it. I like hearing people that are passionate about something that I would never think of that way.
Yeah. Well, that's why the Bigfoot thing is fun because it's just kind of fun. It's like it's sort of conspiratorial, but it's like it doesn't have any baggage with it, you know.
Correct.
The UFO thing doesn't really have any baggage with it. It's when you get into the conspiratorial stuff that like has baggage, meaning, you it has real world ramifications, i.e., people passed away and people died. Like
Correct.
that's the stuff that I want to tread lightly with, but it's still interesting. Like if we can just say that stuff out of the gate and be like, you know, let's talk about this openly and freely, but still honor the fact that there was loss of life.
Yeah, yeah. And
Um,
realize that governments and world leaders will sacrifice and do awful things just to push an agenda.
that is 1,000 billion%
I
true.
mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, that happens and it will happen. And your life is not worth what you think it is to other people. And that's
Like the other
unfortunate. That
thing
is so
too,
unfortunate.
like the Las Vegas shooting, another
God,
conspiracy
dude,
thing. I am
that's
so
another one.
passionate about that. Having friends of not only law enforcement, casino, and on the tour, some of these NDAs, the affidavits, and how it was cleaned up within a week.
Yeah.
Like stuff was sealed off, reports of other
The
shooters and
the
like
most odd
bullets.
the most odd thing to me with that was the security guard guy
Dude,
who was out in the hallway when the shooting was going on.
correct. It was right
And
outside the door.
yeah, and he went on the dude. A week later, he was on the Ellen DeGeneres show with a handler, by the way. He
Correct. And
wasn't there
then
by himself. Did he commit suicide?
I think he died or
Oh, I
something
didn't know
happened.
that. I didn't know that. But I was gonna say he went on the Ellen DeGeneres show a week later and had someone with him, like a handler type person with him on that show, and never went on another thing ever again, and never spoke again about anything. Now, I did not know that he had possibly committed suicide. It was a African American gentleman.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
trying to think. I think his name was like
but that would be somebody that I would think would want everyone would want to talk to that guy, right?
his name
And
was Campos or Campo or something like that, I believe.
but he just
I don't know if
dis
someone,
disappeared.
yeah, someone of that ilk that
Dude,
was one of the first people there, like committed suicide. Like what?
there's a
No,
lot of conspiracy.
yeah,
What's that?
a female that had witnessed the second shooter did report like a couple 2 weeks later was found like killed herself, which
So
yeah,
there's all sorts of weird conspiracies with the Saudi government with that too, where the Saudi prince was potentially staying on top of Mandalay Bay,
correct.
and that there was an operation to get rid of him. There were all these helicopters that had transponders turned off. There's the helicopters that were circling around that had no transponder signal. They turned their transponder signal off during that time,
Yep.
and then flew away after the shooting and turned their transponders back on,
Yep.
which is odd. That there was a Saudi prince was staying on top of the Mandalay Bay in the penthouse, and that maybe there was an operation to try to get rid of him. That this was used as a distraction to take away from that by the Saudi government and by the FBI because they knew what was going on, or the CIA knew
Yeah.
what was going on.
They always
It's
do.
but again, man, it's just like again there was loss of life, so you don't want to
Oh
to
God, no.
yeah
It's
turn
just
that into some diminutive thing that we don't pay attention to. Uh, I love talking about this stuff. It's just again, it's just important to remember.
yeah,
But almost for me, man, it's like with something like that, it's like I want to dig and find out exactly to honor those people, right? Because there
correct.
is there is something fucked up about that does not ring, man, that does not smell right. There's a map you can find, and I believe it's Vegas shooting map. Just look up the Vegas shooting map, and there's someone you have to dig for it probably, but there's a map like an Apple map or a Google map that has icons dropped on it. And what it is, it's like it shows where every person who passed away was, and to in a to give the person who made the map credit, if you click on that, it gives you who that person was, like in
Yeah.
detail,
Yep.
so because you have to realize the gravity of the tragedy, that happened. She was a mother of three, and this, that, and the other thing. Like it's very difficult. I've been on there one time before. It's very difficult to go through, but it also gives you where 911 calls came in from, and it's interesting how blocks away there were 911 calls coming in about people finding handguns on the they found guns on the
Yeah.
sidewalk.
Different casings.
There
Like,
were handguns found on the sidewalk miles away from the shooting, or blocks away from the shooting.
right.
It's like someone had just dropped it. And they were reported to the police and given to the police. 911 calls about other
Shooters.
shooters and other gunshots going off after this, prior to, you know these things with the helicopters and the transponders being turned off. Uh, uh, there's also icons that if you click on it go to video, like cell phone video, iPhone video of the shooting taking place, which is hard to watch. I can't watch some of that stuff, man.
No,
But
it's
there are videos blocks away, and you can hear gunfire, close gunfire blocks away. Like there were other shooters there. It wasn't it's that's a weird one, man. And the fact that it just went away. And we're
yeah.
supposed to believe that this one dude hauled all
Yeah.
this stuff up there, took a hammer and knocked out this window that you can't really knock out with a hammer,
With no military training, firearms training,
and
bags and
decided
pounds of shit through the front lobby. Like, no one's, come on, dude.
and conducted this thing, and then just decided with thousands of rounds of ammunition and guns up there that he was done. Like, I'm finished now. I'm gonna kill
I
myself.
mean, you've already killed 100 people. Why not shoot everyone that comes in that door?
Yeah.
I mean, if that's how, I mean, that's how, if you've already killed one person,
Yeah, if you're an actual psychopath,
now you're going to kill yourself. No, I think you were a patsy.
and there's weird stuff with the blood found around his body.
Yes.
Um, there's and the other thing too, one of the things that I put a lot of stock in is just about every, and again, I'm hearing these other people talk. I'm not an expert, but hearing these military people talk who are listening to the cell phone video, listening to the gunfire, they're like, "That's an automatic weapon. That's a whatever, like
Correct.
a
And
chain,
that's 100 yards away, not
like a
across.
chainsaw gun,
Correct.
And they're like, that's not a bump stock. That's an automatic weapon,
Right.
you know. And again, the weirdness with the helicopters, and there is some, again, I'm not trivializing anyone's death, but from what I understand, there is some autopsy information that some of these victims were shot straight down
Correct.
the top of their head.
Yeah. Which, based
You
on
talk
where
about
he was shooting,
thinking
that's
about these
coming.
thinking about these helicopters that turn their transponders off. What's that about?
Right.
Who knows? Again, I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's something interesting to maybe we should pick one a month or something, and like,
Yeah.
because it's a lot of, I like to do a lot of research into stuff, man. I don't just want to talk about it. Like, I know certain things, like I can sit and run my mouth about it like I'm doing right now about this Vegas shooting, but I really,
Yeah. It'd be good to
I'm
like
not
do that
well
and
versed
figure
in it.
out
Yeah.
the timing and stuff like that.
And I also don't want to, I definitely don't want to throw anything around that's not reliable. I know we just did a show on Bigfoot last week, but I feel like everything that I talked about I felt like was reliable.
Yeah.
You know.
And the people in those documentaries were all sober, so I take
Yeah,
some. I take it for. I take him
none of
seriously.
them none of them are actual aliens or Bigfoot in disguise throwing out misinformation.
Could you imagine God just filming everything happening in the world right now? And just like
Oh, he is.
this is his documentary where he's just like,
He's
boom,
the
IMAX.
the world's worst documentary ever made.
But no, it's a good episode. I know you got
Yeah,
some calls coming up. I got some stuff too. So
I got a call in. I got a band call in 5 minutes.
awesome. Later.
Ah.